Hello everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you the other 5 decks that I was able to get at the Tokyo Tarot Museum / shop, and I'm very excited because honestly some of them I really had no hopes left that I was going to get them. Somehow they had been on my wish list for such a long time. And it's some of those decks that you really have to keep an eye out for because it's not that easy. You don't necessarily find them by just posting and in search of in a Facebook group, etc. But I first wanted to draw your attention to this really beautiful, well, this is a scarf, or this is what they actually use here in Japan to, let's say, wrap up a present with. And it's really nice because it's fabric, but you can also use it as a scarf. And it's the Great Wave by Hokusai. So we've been to a really fantastic ukiyo-e exhibition in Fukuoka, and we've been so lucky because there were a few originals, amongst which this one, which is, you know, you see it everywhere. I mean, everyone knows the tsunami, you know, the Great Wave by Hokusai, and it's been reproduced in many other ways. But we've been lucky enough to actually see the original, and we had no idea. It was completely by chance. We just got into this expo in Fukuoka in the Hakata station, and they actually did not advertise that amongst all of the things that they were showing there would have been the original of the Great Wave. So it was absolutely fantastic, and I bought a couple of things, among which this one as well, which is a kuniyoshi, also ukiyo-e, so a wood block print. And you guys know me, this is one of my favorite ones because it shows this really humongous skeleton that is actually the representation of a yokai, and you know, all of the samurais fighting it. And then there's another one which I really like, which is one of the most famous ukiyo-e, which is one, I believe this is called the 36 Views of Mount Fuji. So this is really fantastic. And as you can see here, it was really not expensive. This is about, I believe it's about $5 US or $4.50 US. So it's really, really not expensive. They're not massive. They're not really, really big, these canvases, but I'm very happy that I was able to find them. So the first deck that I want to show you today is not a deck. It is still a deck that was on my wish list, but it's not a deck that is vintage by any means or out of print. It is actually a very new deck. I believe it has been released probably a couple of months ago, and it's by what now is becoming a much bigger studio than when they were introduced in the market. It's a Stray Cat Tarot studio from Thailand. So if you're not familiar with it, the Stray Cat Tarot studio from Thailand is also behind the release of the Stray Cat Tarot, the Luna Lapan Tarot, and the Aibo Tarot, and a lot of other tarot decks that are really, really nice. I do have a couple of those, and they have, I believe, an entire section on the Tevada shop. So if you're interested in this deck, it is still available, it's still for sale in the Tevada store. It is by a Thai artist that I cannot pronounce, apologies for that, but this is the name as you can see it here. And the tarot name is I Am Not a Doll Tarot deck. Now, this deck has been on my wish list for a while. I have seen it in the Tevada store, and I was looking at it and I was thinking about it. It comes with this really beautiful 2-part box, by the way, which is really nice because it's got this kind of glittery kind of finish to the box. And as all of these decks, this one also comes with a certificate of authenticity. Okay, it says here edition for 2024, so it's actually a bit older than what I thought, but it is still available just in case you're looking for it. So I Am Not a Doll Tarot. And this, I believe, these are the backs, really beautiful, with the stray cat symbol embossed on the back, and these symbols from the alchemy as well. And the reason why I was really interested in this deck is because, first and foremost, it does give me this kind of sense of, what should I say? I am not a doll. I really like the sound of that. I am not a doll. I'm not perfect. I don't know how you would interpret that. So when someone calls something, names an object, an artistic object, okay, this painting is called I Am Not a Doll. It inspires in me something like independence, or even, standing up for yourself, defiance against the rules of society that have become too tight for me. Something like that. It really sounds like an invitation, but at the same time, it is very evocative as well. So I really liked the title, but then of course that's not enough, because we need to look at the cards, of course, and we need to see whether these specific images will resonate with us or not. And will this be a tarot deck that I'm going to use for readings, or is it just one of those decks I just want for my collection? I was not able to answer these questions until I was actually given the opportunity at the Tokyo Tarot Museum to have a look at this deck. So there was a sample, and I was able to have a look at the cards and feel the consistency of the cards as well. And let me tell you, this is a fantastic cardstock. I would say that this is by far my favorite cardstock of all of the decks that I bought at the Tokyo Tarot Museum. And granted, it's true that I do have a couple of decks from US games from, let's say, the early 90s, but it's also true that by the early 90s, the cardstock US game was not exactly the same as the early 80s. So we're not thinking about a thought tarot decks from US games printed in 1983, for example. It's not the same cardstock. But this one is fantastic. It's very smooth, yet it's got the same smoothness as you would feel for a glossy cardstock, a glossy finish. And yet it's matte. As you can see, it does not catch the light. It is very sturdy, but it's got a fantastic bounce to it. And as many of these decks, it does come in this really gorgeous kind of glittery silver holographic kind of edging. I don't know if I can show you that. If I do that, you will be able to see the holographic edging. Really, really beautiful, really lovely. The cards, they fan out like a charm, even though I didn't even have to separate them. They're just absolutely amazing, as you can see. I just really love this cardstock, and having had experiences with these kind of decks before by the Stray Cat Tarot Studio, I think that they're kind of experimenting. I have no idea. I'm just saying this as, from my experience, what I could tell you is I think that they're kind of experimenting, and this one is the best one so far. I'm really, really happy with this cardstock. So it feels very similar to the Luna Lapin, if you have that deck, the edition from 2023. However, it is even sturdier, but at the same time, it is a lot smoother. So I don't know, to me, that is actually the perfect cardstock. Obviously, it is very personal, it's very subjective. So this is already a big plus for me, because you guys know me, I do appreciate a good cardstock. But at the same time, I have to say, the images are what ultimately drove me to actually buy this deck. The images are just absolutely amazing. They are thought-provoking. Contrary to many other decks that have been produced by this studio, the Stray Cat Tarot Studio, this is not entirely a cute deck. I mean, if you think about the Luna Lapin, if you think about the Stray Cat, the Abo, and other decks, they were actually really cute. And I've got nothing against cute decks. Of course, I love them. I have many of them. Absolutely, they are hack decks. I use them all the time. I admire the images. Sometimes we do need that kind of deck. However, this one is, I would say that it takes it a step further. So if you look at the images, you would initially feel like there is some kind of cuteness coming out of them, especially when you look at the Strength card. In this case, there is such an amazing tenderness coming out of this card. But at the same time, the figures are not cute. We're not looking at something perfect. We're not looking at something doll-like. I am not a doll. This is a statement that actually exudes from the cards. It comes out of the images, and each and every one of these cards is just asking you, or even provoking you, triggering you into thinking, okay, let's look at these images. Let's try and find out what our reactions, emotional reactions are, by looking at for example, the faces that are portrayed, the faces of these characters. And these are not the cutesy dootsy stuff that you can find in many of these decks. I can assure you 100% they are not. But there's a lot to be said about the way in which these images actually make me feel. I do obviously start from an advanced state of mind in which I ask myself, what does I am not a doll mean to me? I have been told my whole life that I had to behave like a good girl. And it's not just me, it's probably my entire generation, and probably also the generation follow mine. We had to be respectable, we had to be kind, we had to be knowledgeable in all of the stuff that makes a woman or a girl a good woman or a good girl. And what are those things? Well, sometimes there was stuff that are actually really useful and that I particularly enjoyed. But at the same time, I was asking myself, but should I not be the one actually choosing these things and determining whether I do like them or not? So there's a play in the words here, because as you can see, whilst I'm showing you the cards, you can probably see that these are, I would call them mannequins or dummies. So I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but if you look at this character in the star card, you will see that this is a mannequin. So this is basically not a person. However, it does feel like it's alive. So mannequins obviously do not move. We can pose them, but there is movement here. And why am I saying this? Because the flow of the water that is coming out of these vases is actually uninterrupted. So there is this sense of movement. There is this sense of being alive that is not proper of a doll, let's say, a mannequin, a dummy, however we want to call it. And so there is a word play here, because it asks us to look at the images and think, and knowing that these are not dolls. And at the same time, it also asks us to relate to this sentence, to this affirmation. And I really like that, because obviously growing up I was thinking, okay, I have to be in a certain way because that is the way in which society is going to look at me and thinking that I'm acceptable. I can integrate in society because I belong. Well, at the same time, though, there were so many things that made me completely different. And the stuff that was not even entirely chosen by myself, that was just part of who I was or who my family was, etc. And so this is one of those decks that I look at and I feel familiarity. I feel like I can actually relate to these images because they are different, because they are weird, and because, guess what, they are not doll-like. So these are not how a good girl would look like. Absolutely not. And yet it still feels like it relates so much. So I really, really enjoy this deck. This is my unboxing of the deck. It's the first impression. Not entirely happy with the pierced heart for the Three of Swords, but you guys know me. I do prefer something less focusing on the heartbreak and more on the overwhelm of the mind, but it's absolutely fine. There is, again, this sense of rest and needing rest in the Four of Swords. Loving, these characters from the Suit of Swords. By the way, this is obviously an RWS clone. I wasn't necessarily needing anything more than that, so I'm quite happy to see the images as they are right now. The Six of Swords is absolutely perfect, as is the Seven of Swords and the Eight of Swords and so on. So this is not just an incredibly beautiful deck, because admittedly, personally, I like this art style, but I also feel like it does reflect something that has been very important for me ever since I was an adolescent, a teenager that was absolutely not fitting in, not even really caring the slightest about not fitting in. And this is very clear from this image, for example, and many others. the Page of Swords, the Knight of Swords, really beautiful court cards as well. The Queen of Swords, which is my significator, I really love it because it feels like it's almost a bird. It is slightly bird-like, if you see the neck, or for example, the fact that her cape is actually looks like wings, and she's really skinny, but there's still the joint here at the hand, at the wrist, and the elbow, and these joints point to the fact that she's a dummy, but she's not a doll. So I don't know, I hope that I'm kind of explaining myself, because it is something that I'm still trying to process within myself, and it's something that is really evoking some kind of liberating kind of feeling. And I'm really, really grateful to this deck because of that. And here my voice is going again. Sorry about that. I'm not actually choking, but I'm not entirely 100% yet. We've been really, even my husband fell ill. I was still in Japan, and we find it very, very difficult to get access to medication, because in many cases they have very strict rules and very different rules when it comes to what's available over the counter. So we may actually have to end up going to the doctor one of these days if we don't get any better. So my voice is like this for 5 minutes, and then it gets better, and then it gets worse again, etc. So in the meantime, I was showing you the Suit of Cups, which is absolutely gorgeous. I really cannot wait. Look at the Page of Cups. Isn't it just really, really fantastic? But at the same time, isn't it just a little bit creepy? So there is that sense of, you start with thinking, oh, this is a really cute character in this card, and then you look better, you look deeper, and there's other feelings that accompany those first impressions, and they're not entirely pushing you away from looking at the character and thinking that it's cute, but they are kind of asking you to reconsider somehow. So I'm really, really grateful. Look at this Queen of Cups, really gorgeous. And then I believe, yeah, we've got an additional card. So after the King of Cups, we got the Full Moon, which again, I really enjoy. There is this sense of a puppeteer. I don't know if you can see the string here. It's difficult to see them through the lens, but there are strings coming out of the hands of, of this one, which is already a mannequin or a dummy. So it's incredible. The meaning behind this, it almost seems to say that we are guided. During the full moon, we are still guided, but we are guided by someone who's already being guided, and just someone that is a doll but not a doll at the same time, that has been rejecting all of the strict rules of society, and now that they are guiding us, they're also kind of playing out a bit of a contradiction here, because obviously if you are being guided by a puppeteer, you yourself are a puppet, and strings are the things that actually move you. But it's incredible. This deck is absolutely magnificent. I am really, really excited about trying to read with it. And I think I'm actually going to ask my members if they want me to read with this deck, because I do have a reading for my members planned on this Saturday. And so let's see who wants a reading, and I'm going to ask them if they're happy for me to use this deck, because I really cannot wait to use this. So this is the I Am Not a Doll Tarot. So another deck that I wanted to show you today is the Londa Tarot by Londa. This is a deck released by US Games many years ago. This is a deck that has been on my wish list for a while. It's a really gorgeous deck. And my voice is going again, apologies for that. And I was able to find it for a very reasonable price. So this is the, obviously this is the High Priestess. So let's just have a look. I really don't want to ruin it because it is pristine. And sometimes US Games come with this really difficult to open flap on their tag boxes. As you can see, it's still mint because it's still wrapped inside. And it does come with a little white book that we have here. Let me just double check that it doesn't say anything. Okay, it does actually say a little bit, at least when it comes to the major arcanas. Let me just quickly check on the minor arcanas. No, unfortunately, when it comes to the minor arcanas, it's just the usual little white book, but it does tell you a little bit more of information when it comes to the majors, which is always nice and appreciated. Okay, so I removed the wrap as well. Wow, really gorgeous. I mean, my goodness. Okay, so these are the backs. Rather simple. So who are you really? But really, Londa. Really beautiful card to start with, because then it's almost as if it were a sequel to the Fool. Again, you know, I was showing, I believe, the Fantastical Tarot by Natalie Hertz in my latest video, and I was going through the cards, and even though it's by a different author, obviously this is a different author, the vibes, at least the way in which the characters have been represented here, are very, very similar to the Fantastical Tarot. And I remember expressing this feeling that it feels almost as if, because of the very specific, let's say, characteristics of the really high cheekbones on the faces of the characters, for example, the eyes like this, the cat eyes almost a little bit too much, and the eyebrows in a certain way. So it looks almost as if we're actually looking at figures that are very much in between the world of human and fairy, or at least this is, let's say, the impressions that I've got by looking at them. But at the same time, it also expresses this idea of pushing everyone else away. I don't know if you have the same impression, but it really feels like this is a very independent kind of deck. It's a deck that doesn't necessarily invite me in. There are decks, there are characters on the cards that are really looking at you, breaking the fourth wall, just as much as this one is doing in the Sun card here. However, in other cards, there is the sense of invitation. There is the sense of the character on the card actually asking me into the scenery of the card itself to participate to whatever is happening, and so looking at things from a different perspective. In this case, it feels almost as if there is this kind of declaration of existence, but not necessarily the invitation to be part of this scenery. And I don't know whether it's just me having this kind of reaction. I really like it though. So we start with the court cards and the Suit of Swords, which is very odd. I've seen it though in a couple of decks, but really, really beautiful. Really beautiful, by the way, the Queen of Swords. But I would say I love this Knight of Swords on a zebra. How freaking cool is this? And let me tell you, because we're in Japan, and obviously I'm a geeky, really geeky person when it comes to anime. I grew up in Italy, and in Italy, at least in the 80s and 90s, we were just parked in front of a TV by our parents, and we were watching hours upon hours upon hours of Japanese animes, and I just really, really connect with them. And so this one reminds me of so many animes that I used to watch, and many that are actually being watched at present, because I believe that there is an evolution in the representation, obviously, of anime in the Japanese culture. But when it comes to the art style, we're kind of in the same ballpark, don't you think? So we're looking at the Suit of Wands. I love the fact that there, all of these cards, you do see that there's a kind of a border here, but all of the characters actually go beyond the border. So there is this sense of making sure that we belong to the space, and the space belongs to us as well. And there's always this sense of being alone. That is something that I really find that is very similar to the Fantastical Tarot. Being alone, the character is alone. Even in the Ten of Cups, which is supposed to represent the family, the community, you know, it is one of the cards in which you're supposed to see at least 4 people, if not more. But there's just one. Obviously, this is also another breast clone. There's no two ways around that. But at the same time, I would say this is probably not one of the easiest decks that I've got to read for a beginner. So I would probably not recommend this deck, apart from the fact that obviously it is out of print. It's a vintage deck and it's very difficult to find. So, you know, you would probably have to really want to find this deck. And once you do find it, you probably do not want to use it for readings, because, you know, it is vintage, and I will probably not use it for readings. I'm just realizing this now. But I'm very happy that I opened it, because I really want to look at the cards and play with them. So really, really stoked that I was able to find this deck. So the next deck that I want to show you today is The Itching of the Dead Moon by Luis Royo. This was a deck that was, yes, it was released by Fournier years ago, and what happened was that this one also went out of print, and it became increasingly more difficult to find. I do believe that if you go to Spain, you might be able to find it somewhere, but it is becoming more and more difficult. Now, I was actually kind of tricked once into buying this because I saw what looked like a legitimate listing on Amazon. It wasn't cheap at all, so you know, all the more reason sometimes to doubt that sometimes you think that you're buying the real thing simply because it's more expensive. But when I received it, it was legit in the sense that it was also published by Fournier. It wasn't a fake one, but it wasn't the cards. It was just a book about Itching of the Dead Moon. So I was kind of disappointed because in the description it actually did mention that the cards were coming with the book. So I returned it, and then I checked again only just recently, I believe, before I actually purchased this one, and the listing is still there, and it's still saying that it's actually including the cards as well. So don't, if you see, it's got a larger, a wider kind of box. So if you see it, well, I don't know, obviously I cannot possibly know, but just for you to know, this is what happened to me. I bought that listing and I had to return it because there were no cards. So I don't know whether the new listing finally has the cards or not, but in any case, this is what I wanted, and I'm really, really happy that I've got it. It's just, again, talking about my passion for manga. I mean, you can probably see it, manga and animes. You can probably see it here. Really dark, really beautiful. Obviously, the work of Luis Royo is absolutely amazing. It is not, let's say, for everyone. Not everyone's cup of tea, of course, and it's like everything else, it's very personal. You might not like this deck, you might not resonate with it. I personally had the opportunity to see a lot of these cards, whether it was because of, someone was posting about them on Instagram or on YouTube, but I'm really happy that I was able to get the deck. So this is the guidebook. Okay, it's kind of a weird kind of setup, but I'm guessing it opens like that. Yes, there you go. And I believe that like many other, like many other decks released by both Fournier and Los Carabeo, this one actually comes in several different languages. I see French here, I saw Italian and Spanish earlier. So it could be thick because of that, but this is not a tarot deck, it's a, let's say, I Ching deck. And so I'm expecting that to see at least some kind of explanation on the guidebook. And what I can see here is they also give you, well, this is in Spanish. So Spanish, let me see. No, and there's other languages as well. So this one is in English, for example. And okay, there's other languages at the back. So it does also come with these cards that will help you with the interpretation of the cards, because obviously we're looking at this method of divination, which is nowhere near, you know, it's got nothing to do with tarot, obviously. Really beautiful, by the way, really beautiful. Even the introductory card is absolutely gorgeous. And these are the backs. Wow, look at the images, look at the colors. Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. I really love this. I would probably have to study. I was trying to read this. Apologies, I cannot. I can see that there are letters there, but I think it only says that moon. And it says that on all of the cards. Okay, so it's not a keyword. So I do prefer it when I have keywords, even in my I Ching cards, because I'm not an expert, and so I wouldn't be able to tell you what this hexagon actually means, which is a pity, I know, but that only means that I will have to go back and forth between the cards. And my goodness, look at this card. Wow, fantastic. So it just means that I will have to go back and forth between the cards and the guidebook, which is fine. It's just, oh, it's amazing, amazing, absolutely amazing. I have to say, I'm not a fan of everything Luis Royo has done. I think some of Royo's decks are a bit too sensual for me, like this card, but this is beautiful. It's a beautiful kind of sensual. Some of them are a bit too much, but it's always a matter of personal taste, of course. Oh my goodness, look at this. Really amazing, really, really beautiful. Wow, very dark. So some of them are very dark as well, and of course it all is related to the concept of the dead moon, of course. So yeah, absolutely amazing. So I'm not going to show you all of the cards because otherwise this video will be super duper long, and I know that everyone is super busy these days. I know that there's a lot of you on holiday, and I myself am on holiday. I'm on vacation. Love this card as well. Oh my god, look at this one. Wow. This is such an amazing deck. I mean, I had the opportunity to look at some of these cards, but not all of them. And I don't think I can see a card that I don't like. It's really, really beautiful. Really gorgeous. Absolutely. I love these tattoos, by the way. I am so tempted to get a tattoo here in Japan, because obviously there's a lot of artists that work out of, especially I saw Osaka has got a lot of tattoo studios. But the good ones are, let's say, booked out months in advance because they're so good. And so I'm a bit concerned that if I find a studio that still has some places left to get a tattoo, they might not be as good. Or maybe it's just me worrying too much, but I just love this deck so much. Let me know what you think, because I haven't seen this deck a lot in social media. As I was saying, I was able to find a few photos on an Instagram account, but I also know that probably because it doesn't have keywords, not everyone would use this, but I can definitely see myself using this deck all the time just because of the images here. Really, really love it. So the next deck is also a, let's say, an out of print deck, although I don't think that I would be able to call this vintage, because it is from, I believe, 2015, also by US Games, and it's Jory's Le Grand Circus and Sideshow Tarot. This is a quirky deck, and I don't know how I feel about this one. Let me know what you feel about the cards and the images, because it is quirky, but it's not necessarily always a hit with me. Like again, I had the opportunity to look at the cards, and I bought it because it was very affordable, and I know that it's now becoming very difficult to get this deck, and I do recognize the value of this deck, as myself being a tarot collector, obviously. So I also sometimes buy a deck for the pure purpose of having it in my collection, which is absolutely fine. If you do that too, you will know what I mean. But at the same time, I'm asking myself, do I actually like this deck or not? And by the way, I'm just noticing now that we have quite a fair bit of information when it comes to not just the major arcanas, like we always do, but also the minors and the core cards, which is always appreciated in the little white book. And it does come wrapped again. So let me just quickly unwrap this. Okay. So let's have a look at this one. It's got a very different kind of format. It's like it's almost as if this were the typical format you would expect out of an oracle deck, but it is a tarot deck. So these are the backs. Okay, so I don't have a phobia, a fear of clowns, but I totally get people who do. Totally, especially when you look at this about Jolie, has been clowning around since his early days in rural Indiana. Yeah, fantastic. Happy for you, Jolie, but this is kind of creeping me out. And let's have a look at the card. So as I said, as a presentation, I don't know if I'm going to connect with all of the cards. This is a deck that I really bought because, being a collector, I knew the importance of having this deck in my collection. So starting from that, we are going to look at the cards, and we're going to be completely honest, 100%. I actually like the Fool. Okay, Magician. The Popess instead of a High Priestess, but I get it. The Empress. So obviously this is based on a circus. We know that all of these characters can be seen as characters that we can find in a circus. The Lovers. I actually like this one. And the Chariot. And the Strength card. Oh, I love this Hermit card. This is really sad. It looks really, really sad. Beautiful though, and I love the way in which this, I'm assuming it's a clown, is using the torch. So I really like it. Wheel of Fortune, absolutely fantastic with the acrobats. Oh, wow, the Justice card. Very, very intense, this Justice card, but very effective as well. And the Hen one, of course. And the Death card, really powerful as well. And the Temperance card, okay, and the Conjoined Twins. The Devil, of course. This is probably not, I don't like this double card, but I get it. I think it's very effective as well. And the Tower. And the Star card. Yeah, okay, yep, I'm on board. Okay, so we've got what looks like a very similar character, if not the same, in the Star card and the Moon. So I actually do like this association. The Sun, yeah, with the Tiger and Judgment. And I actually love this war card. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I really, really love it. So I'm not going to show you all of the cards. I just wanted to go through all of the major arcanas one by one. But when it comes to the minors, we're just going to go a little bit quicker. So we got the Ace of Wands that looks like a, I don't know, it looks like a, what's it called? A rivet? Is it a rivet to me? Or a nail? Something like that? Or even a mushroom? I don't know. Please don't judge me. I don't know. It doesn't look like the typical wand. And then the Two of Wands, okay. So obviously, again, we're looking at an RWS clone, which is totally fine. But obviously, it's an RWS, but it's got its own theme, which is the theme of a circus. Okay. And then we're going to look at the Suit of Coins. And let's see. So the Three of Coins, yep, absolutely. The Four of Coins, the Five of Coins. That's a really beautiful Five of Coins, by the way. Only $5. Oh, I like it because it looks like the kid is trying to go back in because outside it's raining. Really like it. Really, really do. I will be interested to see the Suit of Swords, which is actually coming up here. This is the Queen of Swords. I'm not entirely sure I like this Queen of Swords. I probably do understand it though. But let's have a look at the other cards. So the Two of Swords, very intense, but very effective. Oof. Okay, ouch. Okay, I get it. And you know, there's no pierced heart, so I cannot say that I don't like it. And the Four of Swords, my goodness, this Suit of Swords is really triggering. And the Five of Swords. The Six of Swords, the Seven, yeah, I get it. Eight of Swords, fantastic. Very, very effective as well. Nine of Swords, oh my goodness. It looks like a ladder made out of swords. And then the Ten of Swords, yeah. Wow, okay, very, very, very strong Suit of Swords. I love it. I like it when there's a strong Suit of Swords because most of the time the Suit of Swords is the one that is just made, you know, in a rush. It's the last one that is painted, you know, created. Oh, gorgeous Four of Cups. Wow. Well, these cards are amazing. I'm actually really surprised by how much I'm actually reacting to them. And I had no idea, but I'm actually really liking this deck. Great Nine and Ten of Cups, of course. This is a great Ten of Cups. Love it. Well, let me know. If you have this deck, let me know what you think. Because I have to admit that it surprised me, and it surprised me in a very good way. So really happy about this one as well. And last but not least, we're talking about a deck that is not just out of print, hard to find. This is generally speaking referred to as a vintage deck. This is the Phantasmagoric Theater Tarot, also a deck that used to be released by US Games. It is by Graham Cameron. And I am just looking quickly for a year in which it was released, and I cannot find it, which is totally fine. We might have some luck if we look at the guidebook inside. I know that this deck, well, it's a bit of a hit and miss in the sense that I have seen it in some Facebook groups being sold for, and I'm not kidding, 800 Australian dollars. And there was actually people trying to grab a copy of this deck. I was really lucky because I paid nowhere near that price, even though it was recognized as being a deck that was a vintage deck. So obviously it was a little bit more expensive than all of the other decks we've seen so far. But I'm still looking for the year in which it was released. 1999. Okay, well, this deck is 26 years old. So I'm guessing we can definitely call it, to be a tarot deck, we can definitely call it a vintage deck. So obviously there is a little bit of introduction, and then the major arcana, and it talks about the cards. Obviously it talks about, I imagine, what the images are on the card. That gives you also the divinatory meaning and the reverse meaning. It does give you also some astrological influence here, as you can see, for example, with the Justice card, we're talking about Libra. And let's see if it gets the right reference for the star, the angel, Aquarius. Yes, absolutely. And when it comes to the minor arcanas, it starts with the court cards, and it starts with the suit of swords, which is always interesting to me. It does give you that is related to the elemental air. And it seems like it also talks about the image on the card, and it does still give you the upright and the reverse meaning, which is always appreciated. So pretty, let's say, very informative. Yeah, it's still a little white book, but it's still very informative, and we always like it when it's that case. And as always, let me just release it from this even more plastic that we've got here. Okay, here we go. So it's also, this one also has a slightly different kind of format. It is definitely bigger than your standard tarot card, and as you can see, it's almost as big as my hand. So it is on the bigger side, and it gives a little bit of information, the introduction written by the author himself. And then we start. So this is a really beautiful deck. I had the possibility to actually look at an actual deck because a friend of mine used to have a copy. Then she didn't like it. She was actually she felt like this deck really did not resonate with her. And ultimately she passed it on. I didn't, at the time I wasn't too interested in it, and I guess I was trying to see the card the same way she was describing them to me, and because she was not resonating with the cards, I was not seeing any kind of possibility for a bond between myself and the characters here. But now that I'm actually looking at them, and by the way, really beautiful, very soft cardstock as well, now that I'm looking at them, I get my friend's opinion. So okay, so she was saying that this is a deck that was feeling like Coraline, and I don't know if you are familiar with Coraline. Coraline originally was a novella, I think it was, or a novel written by Neil Gaiman. And then it was also, I think there was a movie made on Coraline, and there was also a song by Måneskin, which I absolutely love, that is not entirely related to the story of Coraline, but there are a couple of things. It feels like the characters are the characters that you will find in Coraline, but at the same time, so there is this sense of whimsical. I can tell, I can see that, I can feel it as well, as my friend was mentioning. But at the same time, it feels like it's a whimsical that, even though it's not immediately inviting me to have this conversation, to have this bond, it's not incredibly resonating with me in the moment in which I'm looking at the cards. At the same time, it's not repulsive for me. It's not pushing me away. It's just coexisting. I think that this is the right word that I want to express when talking about these cards. These characters are larger than life, you can really tell. But at the same time, oh wow, look at the Queen of Swords, for example. She is definitely larger than life, but at the same time, she is not pushing me away. She's just coexisting. She's just telling me that she knows her own place. she can see me. She's okay with me being there, but she's not going to be, you know, chatting with me. And I'm okay with that. Sometimes, you know, we need our own space and we need to respect that. Oh, wow. Ten of Swords, really strong and powerful. And the Nine of Swords. I'm always interested in the Suit of Swords, of course. The Seven of Swords, look at this. Wow, that's incredible. I do want to really go back. Oh, look at this Five of Swords. Wow. So I want to go back to the guidebook and get some more information about these cards, obviously, because there is this sense of intention. I can definitely feel it. It just really comes out of the cards. Very strong intention here. Manifesting these characters may have been a labor of love for this creator, this author, because I can tell that there's a lot of intention behind every single little detail here. So these are relatively, I wouldn't say minimalistic, but it's not an incredibly busy kind of deck. So there's decks that are incredibly busy. And I'm thinking that, for example, if you know the Raincoast Tarot, that is an incredibly busy deck for me, by Christopher James. This one is not incredibly busy. You don't have 3,000 things coexisting in the same real estate of the card, but at the same time, every single one of these objects is actually functional to expressing a feeling. So I really appreciate and I like it. It's just a matter of understanding what that feeling is, and once we understand what the feeling is, then see whether it does relate with us or not. And it might not always be the case, but at least I absolutely admire the intention of the creator. Look at this Six of Cups, for example. Isn't it just really fantastic? I just really love the idea of presenting this sense of nostalgia. And generally speaking, whenever we look at an RWS card, which is, you know, this deck is, we're looking at, you know, a memory from the past, something that we want to recall, we want to remind ourselves of whenever we're going through something, and we want to remind ourselves that there used to be a time when things were easier, perhaps because someone else was taking care of things and we didn't have any kind of responsibility, namely when we were children, you know. And there is this sense of sometimes we want to get stuck in that sense of reminding ourselves of how it was so much easier back then. So much so that in many cases we have to be careful not to get stuck in the sense of in the feeling of the Six of Cups, because we need to advance, because we're not children anymore. And guess what? We do have responsibilities. But in this card here, it looks almost as if there is this melancholy coming out of the images as well. There is this tea party. Obviously, this is a tea party, and you know there is this stronger, bigger figure, and the smaller one, probably defenseless, and the stronger, bigger one, it looks almost as if they were just passing by because they're driving a train. And I really like this because there is this sense of motion that is suggested by the presence of the locomotive. Really strong Five of Cups as well. So I am really, oh my goodness, look at this Two of Cups. Wow, very, I would say, yes, it is weird. Yes, I hear you. I hear you. Yes, it's weird. It's absolutely weird. But not, you know, I actually like weird every now and then. So it really needs to, I really need to try and see whether it resonates with me or not before I push this deck away. And so far, it's actually really very strong, for sure, but very cohesive in this strength. And I like that. I like the consistency. And as I said, I really appreciate the intention of the creator behind the cards. Really, really astonishing. I am so stoked about all of these decks because I really will have a fantastic time you know, reading about them and connecting with them. So that was it for today, and I'm really happy to say this is you know, what I found at the Tokyo Tarot Museum, and that was a fantastic experience. So if you are in Tokyo, I highly recommend it. Not as a museum, as I said, there's no history of tarot. It's not your classic. If you've been to other museums of tarot, like the one in Madrid, the one in Bologna, the one in Vietnam, for example, those are more traditional, let's say, museums. This one is one room only, and you have about 500 decks that you can look through. They're all 99% of those decks are mass market decks, and but they are for sale. So all of these decks, it's basically a showroom. If you understand, or if you're familiar with the concept of the showroom, that is basically what it is. Even though I highly recommend it, because as you could see, I was able to find some fantastic decks. So I'm really, really happy about it. And let me know if you have this deck in particular. Let me know what you think, because I did have this fast experience with this friend of mine, and she wasn't very positive about this deck. And so I was kind of keen to, I don't know, having second thoughts about it. But looking at the cards now, I'm realizing that I'm really liking it, and my response is very positive. So I'm really interested to know what you think about this one. But that is it for today, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.